Good evening. Let's discuss about this 4th August 2015 newspaper. So in this newspaper, one thing which is highlighted was related to the Naga issue. So it was not disclosed. A framework agreement was reached on the Naga problem, which is there from the very beginning of our independence. Now the roots of this Naga issue, let us recollect the past. Already I have discussed in the previous videos this one. Again I will try to make you recollect for 2 minutes. The issues of Naga are the roots of this issue. They are there in the Government of India Act 1935. So here the Naga land is described as an excluded area. So now the Nagas started arguing that the Naga land was never the part of mainstream India, and there is Angami Fizo. He established a Naga National Congress demanding for a separate Naga nation. So he also established a Naga federal government, Naga Federal Army in 1956. But however, he did not succeed in running them and he fled to London. So in this case, in 1964, if I remember properly, Jaiprakash Narayan, Bimal Prasad Chaliha, the Assam Chief Minister, and on behalf of Mr. Fizo, Michael Scott, these people have met, and there is no agreement has reached between them. So in this context, in 1972, the Naga National Congress was banned, and Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967 was imposed. And because of this counter-insurgency operation, almost it was wiped out. So it made the Naga National Congress to come to Shillong Accord in 1975, where in this Shillong Accord, unconditionally, the Nagas have accepted the Constitution of India. It means they are going to function within the scope of the Constitution of India. So, in the meanwhile, India also accorded a separate state to the Nagas as Nagaland way back in 1963 itself. Now, in this context, once the 1975 Shillong Accord has come into existence, the Naga National Congress has got into factions. People who are unable to settle with this new development, they formed NSCN, Isaac and Muvaya. So NSCN, Isaac and Muvaya, now it is a hardcore faction which was demanding again for independence, total Naga independence. Now they wanted a settlement out of the scope of the Indian Constitution. And sometimes even China also has supported these factions militarily, and later there are also leadership conflict over here, because the cadre of this NSC and Isaac Muvaya, they were from the tribe, what is Konyak tribe. The cadre is from Konyak tribe, and Tungluks, this is what is the leadership is from. Now this Konyak tribe, one of the person they formed and he developed his own faction, that is called as Kaplong faction. So NSC and IM, from that the certain cadres moved out and they formed this Kaplong faction. And this Kaplong faction, it was Mr. Kaplong, he was not an Indian national. He is Myanmarese national, and he is operating from the Myanmar soil now. And he is a key player with regard to the recent attack on the army convoy. So what he did is he formed this United National Liberation Front of West Southeast Asia with the various insurgent groups in the entire Northeast, with the Manipur groups and also with the Assamese groups, that is Wolfa, and also in Manipur, Meitei tribes, and also with regard to this Kaplong faction, they formed this particular group. This is what is the issue over here. Now, what the government, why he is so angry against the government? Because the government wanted to conduct discussions only with the Indian nationals, not with the outsiders. So the Kaplong was strategically kept outside the discussions, because the Isaac Muvaya, they themselves were not interested to involve the Kaplong on the discussions. So that's why you wanted to resort to the violence again. So in the second thing is, in 1997, the NSC and IM, it signed a ceasefire agreement with the government of India. In 2001, the Kaplong faction also signed a agreement with India. Now, in this context, now there is something called Naga Ho. This is what is the traditional authority in the Nagaland, a kind of a civil society in Nagaland, so which has an important role because till since 1997, till last month, this ceasefire was not broken by any side. In this, the Naga Ho has a significant role to play where it has made the people or disgruntled elements not to go back to the violence again. So in this context, once the NDA government has come up, it started working seriously towards the Naga peace. Now with regard to this, Naga peace, now understand, later after the ceasefire agreement has come up, the Nagaland Isaac Muvaya, they all shifted their stand from sovereignty to having a greater Nagaland. So the greater Nagaland concept consists of the areas from existing Nagaland and then Manipur, few areas of Assam where the Nagas are inhabited. Now, Manipur, many factions over there, they are especially opposing to this. So in this context, whenever a ceasefire agreement was signed, there was a huge violence in Manipur against the ceasefire agreement, and also what are the areas that has to be brought under the ceasefire agreement. So in this context, what is this sovereign question which is not yet solved, and the greater Naga identity, how it is being solved, they are not being revealed yet. Second thing is all the factions are not involved in this Naga talks. These are the two issues we need to take home. And on the other hand, the financial code. So the RBI as a regulator, so the government wants to take a control over the financial regulation in the country. That appears to me. That's an outward, too tough a statement. But however, government wants to have a greater control over the financial system of the country, which till date is enjoyed by the RBI. So with regard to this, the functions of the RBI are related to the foreign exchange and also monetary policy and regulation of the banking system. Now, the forex, it will be removed away from the RBI, and the monetary policy committee will be constituted where 4 members will be from government side, and RBI governor is not going to have any veto. And with regard to the establishment of new banks, etc., the powers of RBI will also be regulated. Now, assessment of the risks in the and management of risk in the financial markets, it is also slowly going to move away from the RBI. So it means why government is intended to control the power of the RBI. Now, growth versus so-called stability. If you observe, the RBI is more prioritizing inflation control and stability over growth, which the government wanted to have. So especially the Raghuram Rajan's conservative easing, that is one thing which is led to this particular one of the situations. Now if you go through the economic survey, many a times the economic survey is saying that yes, it is the right time where the repo rate etc. they can be decreased so that more funds will be available. The SLR has to be decreased, the CRR has to be decreased so that more and more funds will be available. Recently, Raghuram Rajan also has commented that the reduction in rates by the RBI are not being transferred to the customers by the banks. Then banks said that the repo rate and reverse repo rate are decreased. This reverse repo rate, they only change the temporary transactions. Unless CRR and SLR are decreased, the more funds will not be available truly for the banks. So that's why they cannot transfer these particular benefits to the customers immediately. That's how the argument went on. Try to go through those arguments of previous things. And again, the higher education system. In the previous class, I have discussed about this higher education, why it is important in India. So the first thing is, the regulatory aspect of the higher education is concerned in this article. Understand, autonomy and accountability, they are two sides of the coin. The accountability can be recontextualized with regard to these universities and the education centers, but it cannot be taken off altogether. And the government regulation shall not be government surveillance. The government regulation, it shall not lead to the centralization of the decision making. The regulation has to provide for an orderly growth, but not curtail the growth altogether. And especially in knowledge development institutions, the regulation shall not curtail the academic freedom. So the regulation has to confine with regard to the activities which are related to the financial management, etc. At the same time, the academicians also shall not expect an absolute autonomy without caring for results. In this context, in the Western countries, the social accountability mechanisms have been come into place, and accountability to results also has to come into place. So, in this system can be adopted even in India too. That is what is the total argument of this article is. So, the regulation shall not be a control. The regulation shall not be a centralized regulation, and the state surveillance, and it shall not be state surveillance. These are the points carry home. And next is the return of ideology. If you see in the entire Europe, till now, if you see the Tony Blair government, John Major government, in US Clinton government, and everyone, so they have moved from their ideologies. Most of them have become centrist. They call it as third way politics. What is this third way politics means? The politics as per the pragmatic situations we have to take forward. It means to serve the middle class, the governance has to be more important. Here, the color of the flag or which party is in power, what is the ideology did not matter for the last two decades. Because when economy was growing high or doing better, ideology appeared to be confiscated or masked under this particular economic growth. But once the recession has come up, the ideological polarization has started in European countries. If you talk about Greece, if you talk about Italy, in many of the countries, extreme leftists and extreme rightists are taking up the constitutional positions. It shows that with regard to the voting behavior, the people are also aspiring to take the sides, ideological sides, and they want to clear the style of the decision making of a particular government that is going to come to power. So that is what is the return of ideology. The freedom from many midnights, especially with regard to the land boundary agreement. Till now, the people living over there in the enclaves, they are the people without any country of their own. So, in this context, it is can be seen as violation of the UN Convention of Human Rights. In this United Nations, it recognizes equal and inalienable rights of the human family to freedom, justice, and peace. So now, in this context, this agreement brings back this particular freedom, justice, and peace because they can work within or they can live within a legal framework of a particular country, and it brings them an identity which brings them the freedom of movement. So all these things can be done. So now, once the nationality has been provided, the next question comes about opportunity and livelihood. It means more than the diplomacy. Now what is the next step is how the local governments can provide and safeguard the interests and aspirations of these people. The next is with regard to the Lok Sabha logjam. Understand that in Lok Sabha the opposition has a responsibility to raise the voice, and at the same time the government of the day has a responsibility to answer the grievances of the opposition. So then only we can say a constructive debate can occur with regard to the parliament. So the speaker sending the opposition out, suspending the opposition, and making the conduct of the house smooth, it is not a right democratic practice. So in this context, we have to say that in every government, the Prime Minister role with regard to the Lok Sabha, the house where he is heading, it brings an important value to the house. So again, I'm making this statement, an assertive statement here. The role of the Prime Minister, the value the Prime Minister attributes to the Parliament, that increases the respect and credibility of the house. The Jawaharlal Nehru as a Prime Minister, he never went on a foreign tour when the parliamentary sessions are going on. On the other hand, the existing Prime Minister is criticized that he spoke more in the parliaments of the other countries rather than our own parliament. And second thing is, there is no clear stand of the Prime Minister visible on various issues of the country. And the statements which he is not taking the parliament into confidence, and he is making most of these statements outside the parliament. So in this context, the Prime Minister needs to spend greater time and also participate the discussions going on in the parliament that will add credibility to the institution, that is the temple of democracy. These are the issues today which are important, and I'm really feeling sick. But Vinay is repeatedly asking me to update, so I came through. And all the best. Thank you.